Cars, trees, and other debris scattered everywhere. This is Asheville, North Carolina after Helene. Cars wrapped around trees after the force of raging floodwaters picked them up and tossed them like toy boats. This is the scene near Biltmore Village, the popular western North Carolina mountain town, a popular destination for tourists, the art scene, and just all around good people. Restaurants and businesses are destroyed, shattered in the places they once stood after floodwaters pushed through their doors, their windows, and their walls. This is video that was recorded by Carolina Weather Group storm chaser Dan Whitaker, who was embedded in the mountain town during Helene. By some estimates, Helene brought over 17 inches of rain to Asheville and was responsible for record-breaking river flooding that climbed to nearly 25 feet in some places. On an average day, those same NOAA river gauges, they typically only read a couple of feet. As of Monday, FEMA had arrived in Asheville, the city's airport, receiving supplies via planes and helicopters. Supplies are being collected at regional airports in Charlottesville, Concord, Hickory, and other locations, and then being flown into hard-hit communities just like Asheville. Many communities remain cut off from the outside world with no electricity, no cell phones, and no internet. It's not immediately clear when everyday amenities will return to some of these hardest-hit areas. If you are impacted by Hurricane Helene, you may be eligible to receive disaster assistance from FEMA. This funding can help you pay for essential items, temporary housing assistance, and repairs to your home and more. There are 3 ways to apply. You can visit disasterassistance.gov, call 1-800-621-3362, or use the FEMA app. And if you live in North Carolina and you're in immediate need of food, water, or other necessities, or you're looking to report a person missing, we have an additional phone number for you. You can call the United Way of North Carolina by dialing 211 if you're inside the state. And if you're dialing from outside the state, you can dial 1-888-892-1162. And welcome to our live Weather Pods Disaster Relief Telethon, supporting the victims impacted by Hurricane Helene through donations to the American Red Cross. I'm James Brierton of the Carolina Weather Group in Charlotte, joined by my colleagues Scotty Powell and Myrtle Beach. From the Stormfront Freaks, we have Dina Knightley and Serena Arnold, and representing Weather Brains, we have Bill Murray. This is a collaborative effort of all of your favorite weather podcasts once again coming together to raise money for the American Red Cross. We already have $10,265 raised when we combine the figures with our telethon we did last fall, and now we are in an active campaign to try to reach a goal of $20,000 to help the American Red Cross aid victims of Hurricane Helene up and down the coast. This is not just a North Carolina or a South Carolina storm. This is a Florida, Georgia, Virginia, and Tennessee operation, and the money raised tonight will go to the American Red Cross to help victims across the area. We'll also be joined by our friends from the Chaser Chat podcast coming up shortly. We start with a conversation Scotty and I had. His hometown was impacted directly by the storm, and here's Carolina Weather Group Scotty Powell had a chance to go to Morganton in the foothills of North Carolina, his hometown hit hard by Helene. He took these pictures. Scotty, what was that like going back to your hometown, witnessing the destruction firsthand?
Well, I kept seeing the pictures and the videos and just the personal people that I know on Facebook. And I was like, I want to get back there and just kind of see it for myself. So I didn't really, prepare myself or really consider just how high the winds were from this storm. And so just seeing multiple trees down, and it honestly looked like tornado. And I'm going to refer to this probably a couple times. It reminded me a lot of tornado damage because there were concentrated areas of severe damage, and then there was areas where there was just minimum damage. There was still some there. So one thing I noticed was the amount of helicopter activity. I stopped at my uncle and aunt's house, and they had just got back power and communications with cell phones and stuff like that. And we were standing outside, and in that 20 to 30 minute visit, I counted 15, 20 helicopters that just kind of kept flying back and forth. And that was like the direct path from all of the drop-off areas from Concord to Hickory, kind of going into the Boone and Bull and Rock, Banner Elk area. And just the amount of helicopters was the first thing that I noticed. And I'm sure you'll see the photos and the videos of these homes that are just completely washed off their foundation, of homes just gone. Like you could walk up and see inside of people's basements like that. And you can kind of just see how the water, you'll notice there on the picture to the left, that's the river. And you can see these homes were completely washed away. So you would have to imagine where that house is was very, very deep of rushing water and just completely pushed this debris. And then there was another slab right there of another home, and all of these ended up into the trees, and homes completely washed off their foundation. I think that's when it really got to me. It's like, what did these people experience? Like, what was it like? I hope they were gone, but if they weren't, what was that like? And you just kind of imagine in your head just like this wall of water moving into your area. And so it was very sombering and very very sad to see people's homes who, if you're not familiar with Morganton or Burke County, it's not the most rich area, not the most wealthy area. So these people spent all their lives like buying this home and paying it off, and just like their families growing up there, and all of it gone in the wave of of the lake overflowing and the rivers overflowing, and how quickly that home that they've been in forever was just completely washed away. So that was very sombering, and just kind of put into realization of what people were going through. And you know, I don't know if these people ever build back there. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know.
When I saw this video, I too saw tornado damage in my mind.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, oh, thank goodness those people had a basement. They could have sought shelter from the storm, until I realized, no, James, this is not wind. This is water that would have been making that basement flood.
Yeah, and there was no way to get pictures or video to what I'm about to describe, so you just got to take my word for it. But you could actually see where the foundation was poured, and those big, like I don't want to call them screws, because I know there are probably something a more better name for that, but
Like
it's
clips?
like, yeah, the clips, like where these homes are just like put together in cement, and they were just sheared off like nothing. And that just shows you the power of water, and what water can do. And like I said, and you agree, like this looked like tornado damage. This looks like a very strong tornado that would occur out in Oklahoma, but no, this was water. And
On our show last week, this picture choked me up. I almost lost it on our live show, watching and looking at the debris, which is someone's home, pushed
Mhm.
up
Yeah.
against those trees.
And in that, um, there was still a little kid's wagon there. There was still a little rocking chair. Like it looked like it hadn't been touched. Um, there was still some personal items, that was there. And it is again just another reminder of, hey, it affected real people, and people that live there. And just, it just it, it makes you think, man, we're lucky and blessed to not have to experience this. And B, it just shows you the small scale of this wide scale tragedy that's happened in Georgia and upstate South Carolina, Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and Southwest Virginia.
That was certainly hard and a lot. Scotty joins us again live now. Scotty, what was it like waiting to hear from your family days after the storm?
Well, first of all, being in Myrtle Beach, we were kind of covering the outer bands of Helene, and we had tornado warnings galore Friday morning. And so my immediate focus was obviously on that. We had 14 warnings, myself and the morning meteorologist on air for 5 straight hours, and then kind of took a break, hit pretty hard. was quite taxing on top of what we had been covering for the morning. And so as the day went on, you get off work and you try to reach out to family and friends, and all you get's like when you call someone and it goes automatically to voicemail, or when you send a text message and it kind of says not delivered, you kind of think to yourself, and then whatever little service was there, you start seeing people post on social media pictures and talking about how communications are down, power's out, and you start to worry because you're not able to get in touch with family and friends. And so it took, let's say, almost 5 days to hear from everybody that was immediate to me. And the last one was some of my family who lived very close to where you've seen the damage there on those aerial videos. And so that was the one I was most worried about because I knew they were closest to where the major flooding had taken place. But it was a relief to hear from everybody. And still, right now, there's still limited communications, power still slowly starting to come back. There's still a lot of folks without water being run, water services, being used. So, we're 10 days, I guess, now almost from impacts in Western North Carolina, and they're still dealing with these issues. Schools have been suspended until who knows, and so it's a very slow recovery process just because there was so much devastation and damage. And one thing, when I went up Wednesday, was thankful that work allowed me to take off and go up there and check on family, and got some of those videos and stuff. Was the amount of wind damage. I'd heard about the flooding, but the wind damage, just seeing all the trees down on homes and cars, and you can see where they were cut out of the road. So it was just a multifaceted event up there with not only the rainfall, but the wind. So thankfully, the anxiety and the fear was able to relax once we got a hold of everyone. But for the few days, it was very anxious to hear from folks who you care about.
Scotty, I'm so glad your family is well now. I know that was a very anxious time for you and so many other people, and people still in that boat tonight. Serena Arnold is with us from Stormfront Freaks, and we've started to see donations coming in, Serena, to help people like Scotty's family or other people across the Southeast region impacted by Helene. And you have a special offer tonight for our top donor. What is that?
I do. And you know what? Top three. Let's go ahead. I'm going to call it the top donor. Top three donors. I'm going to give signed copies of both the weather story and the hurricane story, which are both children's books that I wrote. Signed copies sent straight to you from me as a thank you for donating and helping out the people who need support from Helene.
That is fabulous. So, folks, if you wish to donate to the American Red Cross as part of our Weather Pods Disaster Relief Telethon, there's a QR code in the top left corner of your screen. It's down in the comments as well, too. And if you're listening to the audio podcast of this later on, outside of our live streaming here on YouTube and on Facebook, it'll be in the description, so you can make a donation even after tonight's live stream concludes. Dina Knightley from the Stormfront Freaks is looking at some of the recent donations coming in, and we're seeing the money pour in already, Dina.
Yeah, we are. It's exciting. And some of them are going by too fast for me to see. So that's exciting. I see Weather Serena. I know I've given. I see Vera Hannaford. I saw Anonymous for $100. God bless you. That's so sweet. So please keep them coming. They really go to a good cause.
Yeah, we'll continue to track those as we continue for the next hour or so, and we hope that you'll donate to the American Red Cross if you can, or an organization of your choice, because there are so many organizations out there helping tonight. Dina, you found a group of people who were helping in their own special way, maybe not raising money, but they were using their resources that they had available to them. We're talking about an AM radio station in the mountains of Asheville, North Carolina, one of the hardest hit areas that after the storm, they used what they had, and that was the power of terrestrial radio. Let's listen to some of your conversation.
We have our own teams that we've kind of established over the last 7 days of people that were just kind of crowdsourced through the iHeartRadio station's coverage of the storm and the after the storm. And they have kind of put together their own little teams, and we have been providing them with lists of people as we get emails into the station. People will email us. I'm looking for my grandmother. She's 88 years old. This is her name. This is her address. Here's her phone number, but her phone goes straight to voicemail. Here's our phone number so you can get back in touch with us if you're able to make contact with her. That system has proven to be really a great system. We sent one of our search and rescue and reunification teams a list of 22 people yesterday, and by 7 o'clock last night, he had found 20 of the 22.
Wow.
You know, we took a call live on the air this morning from a gentleman who lived way up on the top of Mount Pisgah, kind of on the back side of the mountain. The flooding from a creek washed away his bridge, which was his only access to the outside world. Both of them were elderly. Both of them had medication. Both of them needed medication. They needed supplies, and they couldn't get anywhere. We called Chris Henderson, who is he's the same one that found the 20 of the 22. I sent him the information. He actually had a nurse who was volunteering with him today. And just after I got off the morning show, I got a voice message from them that they had found this man and his wife. They were doing okay. They've gotten their medication squared out. They've gotten them food. They've gotten them everything that they need. And more importantly, we believe we've got teams en route over there now to hopefully have their bridge reconstructed so that they have access to the outside world.
So where would people find your information? You said you had teams, but how do they contact them?
They can reach us at the radio station. Our studio lines are 828-240-9962 or 1-800-570-9962. They can also reach out to us through email. It's ashevillestorm@iheartmedia.com. That comes directly into our studio. We have a team of people that are monitoring that email. When a missing person report comes in or check report comes in, they immediately add that name and all that contact information to a list, and that list is immediately sent over to, I would say, Chris Henderson is our lead guy. If folks make a donation to the relief effort, they could do that through a local organization that we've been working with for nearly a decade. It's called heartswithhands.org. heartswithhands.org. They have two functions. Their first function is that they feed first responders hot meals. Their second function is that they put together food boxes for delivery to families who are stranded and families who can't get there. They set up pickup locations. They also set up drop-off locations for donations. As far as if people want to, if they're starting their own collection drive, something that they are planning to trailer up here themselves, we have had just an incredible amount of people who have sent trucks themselves. They've rented big rigs because they've gotten that many, donations. They can reach out to me via that Asheville Storm email, and I will work to help set up a spot for them to come and drop that stuff off. And that spot will also act as a place for volunteers to be able to hand that stuff out.
Okay, great. Mark, that is wonderful. We will help you. We will do anything we can.
Thank you so much.
And hopefully everybody just is okay. What else can you say? There's no words.
You can't. I mean, it's 48 hours is going to be very difficult here. The recovery operation has started, and unfortunately, it's not good. We're expecting a rather large jump in the numbers over the next 48 hours. There's a lot of speculation on the ground from first responders that this could very well rival Katrina, if not eclipse it. There are whole cities and towns that have just been washed away.
Wow.
They don't even exist anymore. It's just a pile of rubble.
Wow.
Where the water once flows. And
Dina, such a hard conversation, and they're doing great work up there at the radio station. You had a chance to listen in to their broadcast for a little bit. Can you tell us just a little bit about what you heard as you were listening in to Asheville over the air?
I heard a lot of people say where they were going to go for shelter. Like there was a Gold's Gym that they turned into an area where they could go for safety, like places they could go, where they could get food and water. That was a big thing. They were doing a lot about giving names of people they were looking for. And at one point they did mention to me, I think a little earlier, they had like say 22 people on one day that they had gotten names for. And I think they found 21 of them. So that was really, that's pretty amazing to find that
Yeah.
many that quickly. So it seemed like they had really become that hub of people calling in, because it was really hard to call and get in to talk to them. But the whole time they were just saying, okay, if you need food, if you need water, come here. The Gold's Gym is the one I remember the most, but I think there was like maybe Home Depot and places like that that they were trying to meet. So they were definitely giving crucial information about if you can get out, if you can't get out, if you're okay, just tell us, and we're trying to keep track. I think they had some kind of Google Drive going or something with names. But I mean, it seemed like it was going pretty well because people can actually hear the signal.
Yeah, absolutely. What an amazing role terrestrial radio plays, and what a great opportunity they were able to do using that power. Thank you for getting a hold of them. I know that was tricky, and I know they're very busy as well too. So we appreciate them taking time to talk with you. As we're continuing on tonight with our Weather Pod's Disaster Relief Telethon, I want to hand things off to Bill Murray and James Spann from the Weather Rants, guys.
So I'm probably the oldest. I know I'm the oldest guy here, and I've been through a lot of hurricanes in my life. My first one was Hurricane Frederick that came up on the central Gulf Coast in 1979. I've done countless hurricanes, Ivan, Katrina, and I hope people understand that the humanitarian crisis is real. I'm not so sure that the pictures and the video really do it justice until you've been in a hurricane zone like this and dealt with it. It's a long road. It's something you don't fix in a day or a week or a month. It can go on for months and years. And so I'm so thankful to everybody here for coming together to help. And let me bring in my colleague, Bill Murray. And Bill, you've got a special guest and who can certainly amplify what we're all trying to say here tonight.
Yeah, James, I was listening to what Dina said there, and it resonated with me because in our big winter storm, the great winter storm that we went through back in, 1993, you became that clearinghouse on terrestrial radio in Birmingham, right?
Right. And let me tell you what, radio is still important. A lot of people say it's dead and people just listen to their phone. And I understand that everything changes. It really does. But in a situation like this, it's a lifeline. It becomes an absolute lifeline. It was a lifeline during the blizzard of 93. Some call it the storm of the century. It was a lifeline during so many events we worked, including what's going on here today. So for those that have been working at those radio stations nonstop, it's absolutely critical. Everybody is a little cog in this big wheel that provides information. And again, I'm thankful for everybody, and they don't sleep, they don't rest, and a lot of these people will not rest until it's over. And they tackle it with a servant's heart. They don't do it for their own glory. They're doing it honestly to help people. So that's why I'm so excited to see all of these good friends coming together here tonight.
Amen. And I received a message from an old friend of our podcast and a good personal friend, Jared Rennie, who is a research meteorologist at NOAA's NCI in Asheville. And Jared, I had always read that the place we were going to come as a refuge to climate change was Asheville. But there was this 1916 flood that was our warning that this was going to happen again. Talk about the history there of that, and was that message communicated out in the days leading up to the event?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. I'm glad to talk to you all and good to see your faces. So yeah, you mentioned the 1916 flood. So that was one of the probably one of the worst floods we've had here in the Biltmore area. Biltmore Village and the Biltmore Estate flooded pretty badly. But even more recently, there was 2004. September 2004, we actually got hit with 3 hurricanes. I'm going to botch which one's in order, but it was Ivan, Jean, and Francis. And those 3 had come through and brought a lot of rainfall. Now, each of them individually weren't really that bad, but just it's that compounding effect of adding all 3 is what caused a lot of flooding in a lot of the similar areas. But I think both of those events have been broken by this one, because we had essentially 2 really big events. I think a lot of people may or may not know that we actually had what they call a PRE, which is a predecessor rain event. And that's essentially, we had 6 inches of rainfall before Helene even came here. So basements were already flooding. We already had saturated soils. And then the second event happened with another 6 to 10 inches of rain in the area and the wind that just knocked out a lot of trees and caused all the devastation that we're seeing today. So, at NCI, we'll be doing an analysis of these events, but we got to wait for everything to kind of settle in, all the data to come in, and wait and see what the rankings come as.
I know that I was telling my junior at Furman, this hurricane's coming inland where I am at near Tallahassee tonight, but it's going to be on your doorstep in Greenville, South Carolina tomorrow morning. And he was in disbelief. But, your people had to be screaming that same message. When a hurricane is moving that fast, it doesn't have time to weaken.
Yeah, and when I was to be clear, my background is in meteorology, but I don't do a lick of forecasting. If you ask me what the weather's going to be tomorrow, I have no idea. You go to Jason Boyer at WLOS, or you go to the Weather Service office in Greer. But what we do is, we were looking at the forecast from Greer. And by the way, the folks in Greer did an amazing job with this forecast, trying to look at the track, talk about the impacts for Western North Carolina. And that's what I was sort of looking at. Is I personally didn't really care about the category, whether it was a tropical storm or a hurricane. I'm not even 100% sure what it was when it made landfall. I don't even know what it was when it got here. All I really cared about was the impacts. And the Weather Service has something called a hurricane threat and impact page that's operated by each of the individual offices. And they basically tell you the threat of storm surge and tornadoes and wind and extreme rainfall. And I was looking at that. And Western North Carolina was just under purple for extreme rainfall few days before any of this rain came. And I got really nervous because this is our issue here. You had mentioned a lot of people come here, transplants. There's no really local Ashevilleans here. It's all tourists and people coming in, myself included. But it's really the rain and the not just the lots of rain that we get. That's the big problems we have. We had Tropical Storm Fred a couple of years ago with some issues down in Crusoe, which is a little bit west of Asheville. And we're just worried that, things like this would happen again. And unfortunately it did.
And Jared, we love all those places in the mountains of Western North Carolina, upstate South Carolina, Northeast Georgia, Eastern Tennessee, places like Chimney Rock. Mm-hmm. It just makes me want to cry. I know you say, you haven't been able to get out and see those areas. But talk about, the extreme devastation and impacts in those areas and the wind damage, as Scotty was talking about, just incredible.
It's so interesting. There are different pockets of, the types of devastation you get. So I specifically live in a town called Candler, which is just west of Asheville. A lot of Candler, we were very fortunate. We had a lot of basement flooding and a few trees down, but not so bad in this area. So we were actually able to venture out. Some of our roads were blocked because of a down tree or a down wire, but we had multiple ways of getting onto the main road. And then as you started going closer to downtown, you start to notice that things were a little bit dustier because and cars on the side of the road, because you knew that the flooding had reached that area and there wasn't even a creek nearby. And then I actually have not gone down to Biltmore, the really bad places like Biltmore Village or Swannanoa or Chimney Rock, but I've seen the photos and it's really just not great. I ended up going to North Asheville and Montford. I was checking in on a colleague there from NCEI, and I was still nervous because there were a lot of down trees in that area and really, really big trees and just on people's homes. And as I was driving with my family through the town, you could hear just like cracks and limbs still falling. And I was just so worried. Like, I am so worried about another tree falling, after the fact. But then some places looked pretty fine. West Asheville looked okay. Parts of South Asheville looked okay, but parts of Fletcher were flooded. So it really was, depending on where you are, different pockets of sort of the damage. And I am appreciative of the folks that came, and brought drones and got the footage out there and was able to kind of highlight where the damage is and where the people are and, how to get the help.
And the reason we're doing this tonight is to raise money for those organizations, especially the Red Cross here, mm-hmm. that get in there and help. Talk about the challenges that even you faced, if your home even wasn't destroyed, but just in everyday living in the days after the storm.
The first few days it was like a scavenger hunt and not a fun one. trying to find out. We had stocked up on some things, some water, some gas, but we didn't have enough. We didn't, we only had enough for a few days, so we needed to venture out. And of course, at the time we had no power for a little while, and I have an 8-year-old, and when the 8-year-old has no power, they have nothing better to do than to kind of ask you a million questions about things. So we all hopped in the car, and I said, well, let's go down to Greenville just to see what they had. And Greenville had, we didn't really know. We didn't have cell service for a little while. So once we got down to Greenville, we got to start to see some of the devastation. And we're like, oh, wow, this is really bad. And there were long lines for gas and cash and food at Greenville. So, I knew the upstate geography a little bit. I'm like, okay, let's go up I-85 a little bit and see, what's the first town we could find something. And the first town was Charlotte. We had to go all the way to Charlotte. This was Saturday. This was Saturday 8 days ago. And Charlotte was really the first town in which we found everything available and not long lines and taking cards. So we just stocked up on stuff there and we went back. But then every day it was like, every morning it was like kind of like a video game where it's like, what's your objective for the day? So today it's like, okay, I got to go find gas. So I got to go get in line for gas today. And then the next day, oh, we need to get prescriptions for not only for my wife, but also for my cat. So we had to go find that and figure that out. So, but with each day going by, things got a little bit better. And even now, like, I can pretty much, travel and get things, but not everybody has that luxury. Not everybody has cash. Not everybody has the car to get there. Their one way out is still blocked. So it really is, it's been very interesting to see.
Hey, what's the power situation up there, Jared? How's the power restoration efforts going?
Most of Asheville is back, not fully. I know I had a friend that lived in an apartment in East Asheville. They just got power yesterday, I think. We were fortunate. We only lost power for 36 hours, but it was pockets, and they're not fully back yet. I think they're still saying either the next couple days. But I think it's been slowly getting better over the past 3 days.
And Jared,
I have a quick question for you too, if I could.
Sure.
Have you been turned away for driving in certain areas? Because the WWNC, when I was talking to them, they had said, please don't come here. Don't get in the way. I guess a pedestrian was hit and killed because they were getting out and looking around. So people are trying to come down and help and take, video, but they were very clear on staying out of the way. So have you been turned away on certain roads?
Me personally, no, but I actually really haven't ventured out that far. The one time we did make that Charlotte trip was on the Saturday where we had just found out roads were opening back up. And it's funny, when we were coming back on I-26 coming into Asheville, it was literally our car and then all the National Guards, all the FEMA trucks just coming up with, and all the energy companies coming up with utilities. But I personally hadn't experienced any of that.
Okay.
And last question for me, Jared, the attention of the nation, our attention span is very short, especially in news cycles. And we've already got another hurricane in the Gulf that's rapidly intensifying. Yep. The message tonight has to be the help has to keep coming, right?
Yeah. And, it's funny. I've heard this a few times this week, and I've been really reflecting on this. So, and not everybody might actually remember Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He had a show on PBS for many decades. And he said something in one episode and a couple times about if, whenever there's a big disaster or a big event that happens, he said, always look for the helpers. And I've really been thinking about that a lot this week because we've been trekking out to West Asheville every morning just to kind of see the status. And it's been interesting. There's just been tons of people out there helping. It could be, somebody providing a meal for someone, people walking around with water. There's been at least 2 helicopters going by our house during this interview, just having people just pouring in and helping where they can. And we try to instill that with our 8-year-old as well. We bring a pack of water with us and, have him walk around and try to hand out waters. And yeah, we're looking for all the help we could get. And I appreciate you all doing this telethon to raise money for this. But yeah, it does become interesting because, you have Milton now in the Gulf, and the focus is on, Central Florida, and rightfully so. You got to prepare for that. You got to tell them about the impacts. You got to tell them how to evacuate and get ready for things. But we worry that the focus shifts differently, and then we'll focus on, we have short attention spans, so we focus on the next thing, the next news edition, the next news story, or whatever. But the help needs to keep coming, because while there are pockets of things that are good here, there are pockets that are still not good, and it's going to take weeks, if not months, to survive. We don't have water. And a lot of people, about 80% of the folks here don't have water. And we're not talking days, we're talking weeks, if not maybe the end of the month. So we still need help, from all the folks coming, even if the news cycle moves on.
Jared, I think you hit the nail on the head there when you talk about the continued need for relief in the weeks and months ahead. And I was in one of the South Carolina briefings, a representative from one of the power companies talking about power restoration, but I think this can be applied to so many things, said this is not about repairing the grid. It's about rebuilding the grid. And I think you can apply that same statement to water, internet, schools. Eventually, we're going to have an election, and they're going to have to check on polling places. There's a lot of logistics that go into it, but I'm glad that you were able to join us tonight and get online and share with the world what it is you're experiencing. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you for having me. Always glad to talk.
Thank you. We have a couple more donations that have been coming in as you've been joining us for our telethon tonight. Thanks to Jill Johnson, $25. Dart Girl, $100. Thank you to you,
$100.
Lisa.
Thanks, Dark Girl.
That is a fabulous donation. The QR code is on the screen. It is also in the links if you are looking to donate to our good cause tonight to help all those impacted. Jared said it himself during his interview with us tonight. One of those trusted voices throughout the storm has been WLOS's Jason Boyer. He joined me earlier. Take a listen. Jason Boyer is the chief meteorologist at WLOS, the ABC affiliate in Asheville, North Carolina. He took time to join us as part of our ongoing coverage. Jason, let's start first with the most basic question. How are you? How are your colleagues doing?
Well, thanks for asking. We're doing okay, considering the circumstances. We never lost power here at the station. We have a backup generator that kicked in when the power went off on Friday morning, and then our power actually came back on in the area that we are located in fairly quickly, about a day later. So we didn't have to rely on the generator. We have running water. We have people able to shower. We have supplies coming here too. People have been very generous in the community to help us. Local restaurants supplying us with food. And
Jason, if you will, help us paint a picture, understand what everyday life is like, both inside of Asheville and in the communities outside of Asheville.
Asheville has it pretty hard right now, even though there's power on. The water situation is growingly becoming a dire situation for a lot of people because we don't have potable water. And we are able to only get water running in some places in the city. So the entire infrastructure, essentially, of the water system has to be rebuilt. The pump systems took a major hit, and the pipes themselves were completely broken and disconnected and washed downhill and downstream in some cases. So that is going to be a monumental task for the citizens of Asheville and the city itself. Outside the city, water is a major issue as well. Clean drinking water is essential, and it's being shipped in, and we have a lot of areas that are distribution centers going on right now. The key will be getting to people that can't get to those distribution centers. How do we get water to the people that are still stranded, if you can believe that, in some of the more rural and remote areas of our counties here in Western North Carolina? So that's going to be a big challenge for FEMA. The National Guard, they're still actively looking for people, doing wellness checks and rescuing some people at this time. We're about a week after the event, and it's still ongoing. So it's really a slow process of getting some normalcy back in these people's lives. The roads are mostly passable in a lot of cases now, but there are still some that are remote and impassable. So they're using mule teams, I've heard, actually getting to some of these locations, which is incredible to think about. But down in most of the populated areas, the roads are open in most cases. The power is coming back on, and it's just a matter of getting that water.
Jason, we've had broadcast meteorologists on our show before, and we've asked them what it's like to cover severe weather outbreak, albeit maybe tornadoes, while they're on TV. This is a similar situation where you're on TV providing a lifeline for your community, but this is also your home, your community. What is that experience like?
It's emotional. You have all kinds of emotions, really a myriad of them. We have the disbelief first and foremost that a natural disaster like this could unfold. You have anger because you want people to listen to the message more intently and react. But you have that message of urgency that you have to craft the right way in order not to panic people, but to get people to understand the scope and scale of what could come. And nobody really foresaw this kind of a natural disaster. I don't care who you are. We knew it was going to flood. We knew it was going to be catastrophic. But when you see the force of the water, the damage that it did, and how many areas flooded, but on top of that had roads blocked because of the wind knocking down trees. That scope is just immense. If the tree damage alone occurred and we didn't have any flooding, it still would have been a very big disaster for our area with so many trees down, roads blocked. It would have made, maybe not national news, but it would have been a big storm in that regard. But throw on top of it all the flooding, obviously, and that turned into a deadly situation, unfortunately, for many.
Yeah, certainly lots of questions that will be carried with us moving forward. Jason, we appreciate your time. Before we let you go, anything people can do to help out?
I mean, obviously, donations are welcome, but I would stress that you go through a reputable source. We have Hearts with Hands locally. We have Beloved Asheville locally. We have the Red Cross, obviously, and those are definitely organizations I would seek out if you want to help. A lot of people want to just physically drive here and come in and drop things off. It's great that they have that ambition and the thought of it is wonderful, but it's very crowded with emergency responders and FEMA and of course the National Guard here. And again, these roads are not the greatest shape. There are roads that are completely washed out. So it's probably not advised you drive here unless you're working with a large organization and they know you're coming and you have a way to get that supply network going and distribute that the supply network to areas. I think that's the best choice, not just randomly coming in and trying to find somewhere to go. It's just because communications are still pretty poor. I mean, my house, I have power now, but the cell service and the wireless Wi-Fi is still down. So no internet and no cell service really at my house. And I'm not in an area that was hit terribly hard. So the areas that were hit even harder, I can imagine it won't be for weeks that they'll have any kind of communication like that.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Want to just shout out some people who are giving and kind. Jill Johnson, $25, and the Stormfront Freaks, $100, and Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Or Jesus. I'm not sure, but it's got a cross, so $25. But we do have a little bit of science behind that. One of the Stormfront Freaks, Brady Harris, talked to Dr. Hobgood about, so maybe we can get a little science behind it.
Hey, what's up, guys? Meteorologist Stormcat 5 here in the Weather Center. I'm here joined by Dr. Hobgood, who is a hurricane expert, also was my professor in college. We wanted to do an analysis on Hurricane Helene and why it was so bad and what the people of North Carolina, South Carolina, Florida, and Georgia are still dealing with today from this devastating hurricane. Let's get right into it. So first, Dr. Hobgood, I want to take a look at the landfall of Hurricane Helene, which made landfall in the Big Bend of Florida as a Category 4 hurricane. What we're looking at on screen right now is a radar loop of Hurricane Helene as it made landfall, or as it was about to make landfall along the Big Bend. I don't know if you have an opinion on Hurricane Helene. We know it was a Category 4 and it made landfall, but was there, from what you saw, did a lot of the wind measurements verify at landfall, or was a little bit lower than I think people expected?
Well, I think in terms of the intensity, Helene was as advertised. I think it's important to remember the Hurricane Hunter measurements are over water. Land-based measurement stations often don't record winds quite that high. But I think Helene was a very legitimate Category 4 hurricane, intensifying at the time of landfall. And you can see all the lightning there in the northwestern eye wall. I mean, that every indication of a very strong hurricane.
I want to start with the storm surge as well, because that was a very, probably the most impactful thing about Hurricane Helene, and really most hurricanes, is the storm surge. And there was catastrophic storm surge that was forecasted for Hurricane Helene. And looking at the data, a lot of these numbers verified, right? I mean, we did have storm surge of 3 to 5 feet down in Charlotte Harbor and Fort Myers and Naples. Actually, Naples and Fort Myers got the second most surge they've seen in a long time. They had more surge during Helene than Hurricane Irma, which was a direct hit by a Category 3 hurricane. That was a very bad hurricane. It was a Category 5 in the Keys, and I mean, this is the fact that these areas, I've seen such crazy surge with this, is not unheard of, but the west coast of Florida was just ravaged by storm surge. I mean, Tampa Bay, and Dr. Hobgood, you can probably talk a little bit more about this, but Tampa Bay got record surge as well. They were almost 200 or 300 miles outside the center of Hurricane Helene, and they got almost 8 feet plus of storm surge in parts.
Helene was just in the right place to drive the water into Tampa Bay, because after the center moved north of Tampa, the wind swung around to the southwest, and that just pushed the water right up into Tampa Bay. And so a number of places around Tampa Bay actually saw record storm surges.
Now I want to talk about the power outages, because we still have hundreds, if not millions, of people without power across the United States. I think the last time we had looked, 5 days after landfall, we still have 1.6 million people without power. One of the craziest things to me, and because we're going to start to switch gears now, because we've talked a lot about Florida, I do want to talk about North Carolina, South Carolina, and those regions, is the amount of people that are still without power in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. Folks that still don't have power, in large part, is South Carolina, North Carolina, where we still have hundreds of thousands of people without power. That is one of the craziest things to me, and maybe Dr. Hogwood, you can talk about that. But you would expect the further you get away from the coast, the more, the less the impacts are going to be in terms of power outages, just because the winds are going to decrease. But in this instance, I mean, Florida has come back, and a lot of people are getting back power. But the further north you go, the more people seemingly don't have power.
Right. I think there are a couple of things going on, and this holds true for northern Florida as well. I mean, there are a lot of trees in some of those areas, and it's, Helene hit at the end of September. So there's still a lot of leaves on the trees, plus there are a lot of pine trees. You get strong winds, you're going to knock trees down over a wide area. You're going to take out a lot of power lines. A bigger problem sort of in northern Georgia, western South Carolina, western North Carolina, and extreme eastern Tennessee is the severe flooding. Because then with the flooding, on top of all the lines and the power poles getting knocked down, you've got flooding potentially getting into substations, knocking those out. And you've got floods and mudslides potentially taking down some of the big transmission lines that are bringing in the power from the power plant. So in those areas that were hit by the most severe flooding, a lot of the electrical infrastructure may need to be replaced.
Dr. Hobgood, do you just want to describe to us what is going on? Why, and why was North Carolina, South Carolina receiving rain well ahead of actually when the hurricane hit?
Well, there was a cold front that moved across the Ohio River and down into the southern Appalachians. And there was a flow of really warm, moist air coming up just to the east of them. So that region, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, northern Georgia, and it would soon affect western South Carolina, was getting heavy rain, thunderstorms, even before Helene approached the region. And we call that a predecessor rain event, and it can lay the foundation for really severe flooding when it's followed up by a strong hurricane or tropical storm. Yeah. And that's exactly what you see in the loop. I mean, you see Helene coming up through Florida and then moving over and dropping heavy rain over exactly those same places that got the rain earlier from that stalled cold front.
All right, so I think it's important to look at some of the pictures of the devastation. This was one picture that we saw on Twitter, and I want to spread the word about these pictures, not to necessarily be doom and gloom, but just to say, guys, the people of North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, they need our help, right? Because their infrastructure is gone, right? They have a major road basically washed away. A lot of these areas like Asheville and others are only accessible by air, right? So they're and to some degree they are building more roads right now as we speak, but some of these regions, some of these people are still stranded because of situations like this. Because I mean, think about it. Where are the roads? A lot of the roads are in the valleys, right? Because that's the flattest part. That's the easiest part to put a road. That's where everyone normally. That's where the towns are. And think about where the water comes when it comes off the mountain, right? It's funneling all into the valley where the roads are, where the towns are, where a lot of people are. So people have been devastated by this, and there are a lot of people that still need our help and are going to need our help for weeks, because it could be a long time before the actual infrastructure gets in place where people are going to be able to get access to clean water, to supplies, right? A lot of people can't drive to the grocery store right now because a lot of the roads are like this. And Dr. Hobgood, when you see these images, I mean, it not only is the flooding is bad, right? It is very bad, but it's also the fact that it's knocked out things like roads that are keeping people and keeping the help from getting to the places it needs to go.
Right. That's what makes it so devastating, is that we rely so much on ground transportation. I mean, we need those roads to get supplies, even everyday things. And also, you look at something like that, any water treatment plant along that river has been knocked out of service. So there's no water. So you're even trucking in water now. And if you don't have the roads, as you indicated earlier, the only thing you can do is bring it in by air. And I mean, I don't know exactly what this is a picture of, but I mean, I-40, a major interstate, is closed. And it's going to be closed for a long time because of the flooding and the erosion. It makes the recovery even harder when you can't just drive into a region.
Well, guys, that about does it for this segment. Please, guys, if you're watching this, you feel comfortable with donating, please do, if you have the means to, because for a lot of these people in this part of the country, this is their Katrina. We're seeing a lot of fatalities and just complete devastation that is going to take months to clean up. There's still people trapped. There's still people without access to clean food and supplies. So if you do have the means, I'd really encourage you to donate in some way. I just want to let you guys know that Stormfront Freaks are behind you. We are thinking about everyone in North Carolina, South Carolina, everyone that's been impacted, in Florida, Georgia, by this devastating hurricane. So please support if you can, but know the Stormfront Freaks support is fully behind you guys. This is Stormcat 5 with Professor Hobgood, hurricane expert. We wanted to just go into what happened, Hurricane Helene. We'll keep supporting you guys. See you on the next one.
And we appreciate that analysis and the support from all of the Weather Podcast as we come into another hour of our Weather Pod's Disaster Relief Telethon. I'm the Carolina Weather Group's James Brierton in Charlotte. My colleague Scotty Powell from the Carolina Weather Group is here representing Stormfront Freaks, Dina Knightley, and from Weather Brains, Bill Murray and James Spann. This is a collaborative effort of all of your favorite weather podcasts coming together to raise money for the American Red Cross. There's a QR code on your screen if you're watching live with us on Facebook or YouTube. And if you're listening to an audio podcast replay of this at a later time, you can still donate. The link is still live. You can find that in the description. We have some recent donations. Who are our latest givers?
Yeah, thank you, Jill Johnson. I like Inspector Sassy. That's a good name. Jared Rennie and Ryan B. Thank you all for being so kind. We appreciate it.
Jared, just on our show, a victim of Hurricane Helene, if you will, as somebody who lives and works in the greater Asheville area and giving back tonight. How amazing is that? A farmer's wife watching with us on YouTube, friends south of Asheville, already had 7 inches before the hurricane, speaking to that predecessor rain event that both Jared and we were just hearing in our last segment. And, another good point that's been coming into our live chat from Mama G is roads will have to be rerouted in some areas because the rivers have literally changed the terrain. Scotty, we saw a post from Evan Fisher, former friend or current friend of our show, former co-host, and he was showing us on Twitter that not only have the roads have to be rerouted, but the rivers themselves have been rerouted. Did you see that post?
I did see that post, and then actually today I saw from the McDowell County newspaper, the river that runs through McDowell County, the Catawba River, has actually reformed the structure through portions of the county. Now it's much wider, so this is history changing, I guess. Now that you have these rerouted rivers, and some of them are much larger, and I know from seeing some videos on YouTube and stuff from Chimney Rock, like the big boulders and things have been moved and now just kind of changing the river current. So I did see that post from Evan, and seen several other posts kind of reiterating the fact that a lot of these rivers have changed forever now.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of work ahead. The North Carolina Department of Transportation is just one of those many organizations across the region that are taking part in the rebuilding effort. They put out this video to help us understand what it is that they're facing.
We're coming into the small community of Back Cave, and as you can see, we're getting into an area of pretty heavy destruction right now. This is Reedy Creek on our right, and it's severely scoured out. It's damaged a lot of roadway, but we're almost to a bridge site that is really destroyed, and one of our missions today is to check on this bridge. As you'll see further up, the road is completely destroyed, and we're going to have to advance using ATVs. So, I mean, the road just kind of keeps getting shrunk down to a very, very small footprint where we won't be able to go with even trucks. So
we're out here reviewing sites in Division 14, doing site assessments. As you can see, I have a box culvert behind me that's been completely washed out. The upper end of the inlet of the culvert was stopped up by debris flow, which led to water overtaking the culvert and eroding the approaches into the culvert, essentially washing the roadway away. We're going to come up with a plan. We're going to work on removing debris from this site, do a full structural inspection, and then work on reestablishing the approaches to the culvert to get this section of the road back open. We're out doing site assessments. We understand people are still trapped in their communities, and we are making a big push to get everyone out. We are aware of the situations. We have plans in place. We have partners from Florida DOT in the area, and we will rebuild North Carolina.
One of the many Department of Transportation and resources that are out there right now trying to take part in rebuilding. As we know, there is also active rescue operations happening, not only here in North Carolina, but across the region, because we know that it's not just one state that is impacted by this. It's multiple states as well, from Florida to Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee, just to name a few. As part of those ongoing recovery efforts, we checked in with our friends at Georgia-based rescue operation Sirens Project. They are volunteers that go out in the aftermath of storms to help neighbors clear their streets and get their communities back open. They zoomed with us from South Georgia as they continued their operations. Take a listen.
Hello, everybody. Jared Smith here with the Carolina Weather Group out of Charleston, talking to Warren Causey from the Sirens Project. He and his team have been on the ground in South Georgia, working through a lot of tree damage from Hurricane Helene. So, Warren, give us an idea of what conditions are like on the ground.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And conditions are pretty rough, to be honest. The devastation is really widespread. I don't think I've seen this much tree damage this far inland since Hurricane Michael in 2018. And there's a lot of similarities there as far as the scope and breadth of tree damage. A lot of trees on homes, a lot of roadways blocked, and that was kind of our priority going into this for this first part of our deployment is route clearance, getting those thoroughfares open, and so EMS and different first responders can get into different areas, and then also removing trees on houses. But the devastation is really widespread, just hundreds of miles through our driving process, doing assessments and stuff, hundreds of miles of tree damage, and so it's really impressive.
So the roads that you've been clearing and everything like that. I mean, it sounds like a lot of back roads, probably any like main roads, anything like severely cut off.
So the main interstates when we first got here were open. That was kind of first priority right after landfall. Some of the secondary roads, though, especially in rural parts of South Georgia, so we're talking about Adel, Nashville, Hazelhurst, like some of the more smaller towns. Some of those main roads were still blocked, and then a lot of the I guess you could say secondary, like neighborhood roads and stuff like that, and then obviously people's driveways and just the means of ingress and egress out of their property, where a lot of those were blocked, and so it's kind of what we were prioritizing upon our first few days here in South Georgia.
How many folks do y'all have on the ground?
So we have 6 volunteers here doing work, and that's kind of how we operate. Since we do a lot of technical tree work, we generally deploy smaller teams and kind of work like almost like a nonprofit tree service.
I know you're taking a few days, and then you'll be back out into the field next week. What are you expecting to run into? And give us a little idea of what your plans are.
Yeah, I think when we come back, we're going to do another round of generator deliveries. So, in addition to the critical route clearance and hazardous tree removals, we're also delivering generators to rural parts of South Georgia, to family with critical needs. Some of our generators ended up at a youth impact center just outside Valdosta, powering some life-saving medical equipment for some children there. And so that's kind of important, especially at the very beginning of a disaster like this. The first 6 to 12 hours, it's really important to get those generators in the right hands because a lot of those medical and critical needs need to be met fairly quickly. But yeah, we're going to do another round of generators just because it seems like the power situation might be pretty dire for the next 30 days or so. And we'll also do some more tree removals, some hazardous tree removals, trees on homes. So it looks like there won't be any shortage of that even going into next week. But we also have some contacts in North Carolina that we're talking with, some sheriff's offices up there, that once the roads do open and heavy equipment are allowed in, we'll probably focus some efforts up there as well to do some route clearance. They've requested some heavy equipment teams, chainsaw teams, also teams that have experience removing trees off of homes up there as well. So we're keeping it open, and I imagine we'll be all over South Georgia, East Georgia, and Western North Carolina, over the next, probably into early next year, to be honest. I think this is going to be one of those responses that's going to go well into the first of the year.
Warren, really appreciate your work. And again, glad to have you back here, talk about it. And we'll probably have you back at some point down the road to get a progress check, see how things are going, and see how folks are recovering, because this story is going to be one that we're going to need to be on for months, maybe years. So again, Warren Causey, thank you so much for joining us in the Carolina Weather Group for our telethon here.
That's Jared Smith talking to Casey there from the Sirens Project. One of the things that we all have been battling, whether you're a broadcaster, an emergency management official, somebody who has just been living through this, or you're seeking a friend or a loved one, is sifting through information. There has been an unbelievable volume of misinformation, leading organizations from FEMA to the town mayor of Lake Lure having to come out and ask people to stop spreading misinformation. Here was the message she posted on Facebook. Take a listen.
My name is Carol, and I'm the mayor of Lake Lure, North Carolina. Our small community has been devastated by the historic flooding caused by Hurricane Helene. A video recently circulated on social media and TV news about a South Carolina man using his private helicopter to help rescue stranded flood victims. While the rescue mission is still ongoing, we want to clarify some facts. Last week, a brave man named Jordan Sidham flew his private helicopter to the area in response for a call for help. We are thankful for him and to the hundreds of other volunteers who are still helping us with rescue efforts. Mr. Sidham landed on a bridge that serves as a critical and only connection with first responders, who are trying to coordinate land, air, and water for dozens of people at the time. Apparently, a law enforcement officer from another jurisdiction said something to him about an arrest. Although this person doesn't work for Lake Lure, we regret the misunderstanding terribly. We still need help from anyone with the expertise or equipment willing to help rescue and rebuild, and would never arrest someone for trying to help. Many things that have been said about the Lake Lure Fire Department staff and what is happening here in Lake Lure are incorrect. We've put some facts about what actually happened on our website and encourage anyone watching this video to go there and learn for themselves for the facts. Thank you for your support.
So we know there is a lot going on and a lot of emotions, and we don't even want to get too far into this topic of conversation, but I do want to bring in my friends from fellow podcasts that are with us tonight for the Weather Pod's Disaster Relief Telethon, specifically James Spann, who, not only hosts the Weather Brands podcast, but also is a very popular broadcast meteorologist in Alabama. Lots of people from across the country follow you on Facebook and on social media. And James, I know you've been battling this tug of war with trying to get information out while trying to shout louder than all of the nonsense.
And what it's become an unneeded distraction to what we're trying to do is to help people. I remember so much about this great country over my long life where we would come together after horrible weather disasters. For example, in my state, April 27, 2011, we had 252 people that died in one day, from 62 tornadoes. And in the days and months following that, there were no Democrats, there were no Republicans. We were just Americans, Alabamians, trying to help each other. And you look back at a Hurricane Katrina, you look back at a 9/11, it was the same kind of thing, that those events unified the country. And I'm afraid that's not the case in this one. I don't understand it. There's something radically different in that so many people are so deep into politics, whether it's right wing or left wing, that's all they think about. And they somehow have started to spread disinformation involving some type of bad information that would help their candidate of choice in this presidential election, which is absolute insanity. So my only encouragement is this: if you are so into politics, and if you believe that responders are being jailed, if you believe that emergency supplies are being confiscated, if you believe that we steered the hurricane into the mountains of North Carolina, just please refrain from that for at least a few weeks. Can you give us a little time to help these people? Because what that disinformation campaign is, it's just a distraction, and it takes away from what we're trying to do here tonight. It's to help people. My encouragement is for just for a moment, just for a fleeting moment, have some empathy. Put yourself in the shoes of the people that have been suffering like we've talked about tonight. We've lost our ability to do that in many cases as Americans, compassion and empathy. So I would just encourage you, if you are so deeply, deeply into politics, and I'm the biggest free speech guy in the world, but just sit on it for a little bit and give us a chance to help these people. And if you're spreading information that you've heard from a TikTok dancer or from some Uncle Ted's guy on Facebook where he's running a weather page about how, the government's controlling the weather, if you just sit on it for a little bit, we'll address that later. Give us some time to help these people.
In Alabama, you guys were not directly impacted by this storm, thankfully. But I've seen you use your platform, James, to spread and share accurate information, whether it be from officials or from family and loved ones who are looking for missing people. Why was that important to you to play some role in that accurate information sharing?
Well, I think for people that have been given a lot is demanded of them. And if you've got a large social media footprint, why not use that in a positive way? And yes, there are a lot of negatives about social media. We can get on here and talk about the tweeter and the face bag and all this stuff and the negatives. But by golly, there are some positives. And what I've learned over the years is that social media can bring these two groups of people together, people with needs. I mean, serious, desperate, urgent needs. And you can bring them together with people that have haves. They have supplies. They have resources. They have the ability to help. And if you can use that big social media footprint to bring the needs and the haves together, then magic happens, pure magic. And why not? Why not do that? And so that's what I've tried to do in the last week after, in the days after Helene, and I think it's worked out pretty well. And obviously we have another one coming up on Tampa here this week, and I think it's the same kind of thing there. And so while we're not directly affected where I am, you're our neighbors. Goodness, you're just down the road here. So let's use it in a positive way. And I've seen other meteorologists do that too. And I think that's the one thing where it's encouraging to me. A lot of professional meteorologists, these are brilliant scientists that can, goodness, they can do differentials. They're brilliant. But what they do, they have learned over the years, looking people in the eyes that have been affected by hurricanes and tornadoes and floods and these high impact events. They have developed that empathy. And when you look people in the eyes, it is different. It's different from looking at pictures on the internet. It's different from looking at video you see on social media, the ones that are there in these zones. And most of us have been there. If you do this long enough down here where we are, you're going to have these horrible disasters. And so I think that's trained us to have a servant's heart. And when you do that, life gets pretty good. It's not about us. It's about helping other people. And during some situation like this, using social media, it's a great way to do that. So we cannot let the haters and the trolls and the know-it-alls and the disinformation and all this distract from the prize. And the prize is helping these precious people. And that's what I like what we're doing here tonight. That's the whole point.
Well said. I appreciate that very much. And coming up in just a moment, we will hear a positive story about the use of social media and the power that comes with it. First, though, let's check in, get a couple names from people who have recently given as our WeatherPod's Disaster Relief Telethon comes on. What new names do we have to share?
We have Monica Marlborough. Thank you very much. And I found out too, we had a teenager send it in, Casey Johnson. Casey Johnson is like 13 years old and gave some of his money. So God bless you. Good job, kid.
Thank you so much to everyone who continues to donate. We have a QR code on the screen right now to donate directly to the American Red Cross as part of the WeatherPod's Disaster Relief Telethon. There are other great organizations out there as well, too. So if you feel moved to help them out, by all means, we do encourage that. One of the other weather podcasts who has teamed up with us tonight to bring this presentation to you is our friends at Chaser Chat, who talked to Sean Hendricks. He is the chief of staff for Mr. Beast, a very popular YouTube channel based right here out of North Carolina, and they used their influence to deliver Starlinks, one of the many tools helping Western North Carolina reconnect after the hurricane. Take a listen.
Hey there, folks. I've got Sean Hendricks on the line right now. He is part of the Mr. Beast crew, and he is also from North Carolina, as that's where Mr. Beast operations are ran out of. Sean, how's it going today?
Good. We got DOT starting to catch up to us where we're at on these rescue efforts and getting the roads open. We've been focused on getting life-saving supplies up to people that are up in the mountains. There's no roads left. This isn't something you can in a couple of days. But they have been building roads for us and getting us closer and closer. Supplies are starting to roll in. We're no longer limited to one bottle of water a day. So that's great. We're actually starting to see some food and water come in. Water's actually pretty good today. Not seeing much of an issue. But yeah, big, huge swing. This is the way it is always in these areas. It's really bad, and then it starts to pick up really fast as everybody gets here and all the stuff starts rolling in.
So it sounds like it's a momentum play where things start to snowball in the right direction.
That's right. Yeah. There's no water, and it's, oh my God, we need to move more water, get more trucks, get water out to people. But the thing to remember is when we're doing good down here in the city, we're still trying to get to people who are living way back in these mountains. This is a pretty mountainous area. It's rough. And the amount of water up here was over 30 inches. And we're talking about it carved. It's not that the road pavement's gone. The road bed's gone, right? It's now a canyon. There's not even a place to clear off, right? We're talking, I don't know, I'm speaking out of turn here. I'm not a transportation expert, but my mind to recover that Earth has been reshaped by this water flow.
Now, a couple of things that I wanted to ask you about, because I've been following along your Twitter timeline, and there's been some really interesting stuff that I think we haven't seen before with disaster recovery efforts in the past. Could you speak a little bit about how Starlink is helping everybody this time around?
Well, it's something that's so catastrophic. There's no cell towers. There's no electricity. We're back to the Stone Ages, right? Ham radio is wonderful. It still is. Radios are for point-to-point, team-to-team, local communication. But ham radio is much harder to get out of forward, or to get information out of what we need in this area. So local comms, point to point, ham radio. Starlink gets us out and tells people what we need to come in with. And a Starlink size of a backpack, and it does more than these huge EMS trailers that have the satellite dishes on them. It's faster, it's easier to set up, and it uses less power. You can't hike a trailer back up in the woods. It's been given us high-speed comms. The fact that I'm able to post videos is because we are traveling around with Starlinks everywhere we go. So people are getting real-time updates of what's going on, and I'm able to literally ask for supplies to the entire world at a moment's notice. Hey, we need baby food. Hey, we need porta potties. Hey, I needed batteries flown from Florida, and we got them. You know what I mean? It's been incredible what Starlink's allowed us to do.
Yeah, it really seems like some of the better aspects of modern technology, social media, really shining through during this event.
100%. Yeah, social media for social good. And also the other thing too is I've got a little bit of influence on the internet, and what is it worth other than like self-gratification? But then all of a sudden now you can turn it into really helping people. So I think that's the good side of it. I think maybe that's what you focus on more. But it's been wonderful to see how people, they reshare and they message me. I got a friend of a friend who has a private plane that's willing to loan it to you. Wow. I just got a PJ for free because of X. And that's the power that social media has. So I think it gets demonized, but here it is. It's saving lives. There's no doubt. I can say that without a doubt. It's saving lives, period. And then again, at the Starlink side, they've been great. Actually, at Starlink reached out to me. They've made my account. Any Starlink dish I add to my account is free now.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, Sarah at Starlink reached out. They talked to whoever they needed to talk to at their side and got it done quick. So now we're just able to have these pre-set up, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to worry about typing a credit card number in or all that. It takes time, and minutes matter. And so I can just turn it on, and it's just on my account and paid for. It saves us 10, 20 minutes every time we set up. I don't know if I can explain how massive that amount of time is.
Oh, it absolutely sounds like it would just add up if you had to keep doing it over and over again. And the last thing I wanted to ask you about before we talk about how people can help if they're so inclined is drones, because I see you guys are working a lot with those. And I imagine, especially given the terrain, and like you mentioned, it's not just roads that are gone. It's like literally the entire road bed that's gone. How are drones helping you guys to actually get supplies out there, help find survivors, that sort of thing?
Two ways. Thermal drones tell us what houses have people in them. Right, we see warm pipes, we see people out cleaning up their yards. So we go through with thermal drones and tag them, and then we could send a drone that has a speaker and a microphone on it, and they come back to me. We basically fly it down there, and they talk to the drone and tell us what they need. I need baby food. I need heart medicine. I need oxygen. So we don't just bring them protein bars and water when the guy needs his heart medicine. So we're able to target life-saving, because we just can't get these people out. There's no getting these people out of the situation. We're talking miles and miles of washed-out roads. The other way we use it is, let's just say there's a downed bridge, and we get the community to gather on the other side of the bridge while the water's just ripping through, and we can use the drone to hop it over the bridge over and over again. We can move a pallet every 15 minutes or something. And so it lets us, that last 100 feet that we can't cross, get stuff to people. So that's been pretty.
Carolina Secretary of Health and Human Services. We're here in Asheville, North Carolina to check on our healthcare infrastructure that we know has been so badly impacted by the effects of Hurricane Helene. Our team has been working around the clock to make sure that our healthcare facilities and our long-term care facilities have the support that they need to serve their communities. I'm happy to say that as of late last night, all the acute care hospitals in the region have had their power restored. And we were able to get power back to Mission Hospital Saturday night because Governor Cooper made sure that was a priority for Duke Energy.
My son's a Marine, so I said, hey, I want this. So I told my apprentice, and we were like, let's get this on for the VA. Trying to find a place to get in was the hardest part, because all the flooding. Up and down terrain that was covered with bushes to our chest, and then when we finally got where it was a flat, it was the washed out area from the floods, so it was every step you almost losing your boots in the mud. When we finally got there, it was actually made it kind of hard to climb because I had so much mud on my boots, but it was all worth it to get to be here.
What amazing work the men and women of so many power companies are doing. Bill and James, I think you had some thoughts about the great work that power companies and their employees are sacrificing right now and doing for us.
I did a FaceTime call with the lineman that was working in your neck of the woods there, and they have been up there obviously since it happened. And of course, they planned for this. This is something that they're good at this. They know how to do this, and they once they see a system like this forming, they make their plans. And I think it's been amazing. And I think people don't really appreciate what they do. They're basically rebuilding infrastructure here. And I will tell you to get your power back on in a day or 2 days or 3 days after something like this, it's a miracle. And they work hard. They don't sleep. They don't eat right. They're away from their families. They're away from their spouses and their children. And that's really hard, especially when they have the younger children that are in school. They miss their kids' programs at school. They miss ball games. They miss things. So I don't think they get enough credit. And quite frankly, a lot of them have to endure abuse from people. Now, not everybody. Some people are so kind to them. They'll give them lemonade and they'll come out there and thank them. But you never know what you're going to get. So we cannot thank them enough for what they have done in this case and for every weather disaster. Our house, we were hit by a tornado, this home here in our neighborhood, March 25th, 2021. The power was back on in 36 hours. They rebuilt the entire infrastructure. So a big shout out to these American heroes. And that's who they are, American heroes. Bill Murray, don't you agree?
Oh, James, there's just about nothing more comforting when you're in a hurricane zone and you see those just armadas of power trucks coming from all directions. And I talked to them in gas stations. They were from Indiana and Illinois and all over, and they were coming to help people in the Florida Big Bend area. And they're going into areas that they don't know, areas that are dangerous, and they're taking their lives into their hands. And I had to stop and tell them thank you, because I mean it was amazing, and it just gives you a great feeling when you see them. We have great friends at Alabama Power, our utility back home, and they like James said, the planning is just intricate to make sure that they have all the resources, and I know all the other utilities do the same thing. So this mutual aid pact that they've all got going is really amazing, and it's the difference between civilization and no civilization in the wake of one of these disasters.
And I still see, looking at it as we're recording this show on Sunday, October the 6th, just in North Carolina alone, 139,591 are still without power. They're
wow.
Yeah, and you can't even get water back up, schools back in session, or small businesses back open until you get that power. It is the dependency, the blocker for so many of these other modern ways of life.
And here's the thing, too, you have to understand these folks are exhausted. And here we are with another potential situation like this in the Tampa Bay area and parts of the Florida Peninsula at midweek on Wednesday. And so they're going to have to not only continue power restoration efforts in Georgia, in South Carolina, and North Carolina, but also plan for this new Milton hurricane coming in. And it's putting a strain on them. But again, the planning, they're so good at what they do. I have been into their storm centers, and I have seen a little bit of the way the sausage is made, and it's just remarkable. So, but again, if you see these people, please don't be mean to them. And I know that folks that listen to this and watch this, they're not, because they're weather dweebs. And I think weather dweebs understand that. But just encourage your neighbors to be, just an encouraging word. You don't have to, make them a lunch or whatever. That would be nice. But just an encouraging word goes a long way. I've seen so many Alabama Power Company crews in some of these areas where they'll see signs out in people's yards. Thank you, Alabama. And that means so much. The kids, 5, 6, 7-year-old kids will make these little signs. And that means so much to these workers that have worked so hard. So just an encouraging word goes a long way.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of hard work, and as James just said, we hope the best in the days ahead as another system gets brewing here at the peak of hurricane season, so that we can get so much of the country back up and running. Florida in the sights once again with this storm system that is on target to impact them so much of the state here in the days ahead. Looking back at what Helene did, Stormfront Freaks Phil Johnson spoke to a local small business owner who's working to get back on his feet. Take a listen.
So Phil Johnson here with Stormfront Freaks, and we've got joining us is Robert McGraw, who is a small business owner of Ami Coconuts down in Anna Maria Island, which is in Florida and near Tampa. but certainly was hit and devastated quite a bit by Hurricane Helene. And this is all part of our Hurricane Helene recovery telethon, and really just trying to make sure everyone's aware of what everyone's dealing with. And so I guess what I want to first find out a little bit about from you, Robert, is what day was it that you were able to go back onto the island and check out your business?
We were here
How
Friday,
soon was that?
We were here Friday morning. I mean, as soon as we were in the first group of people that they started letting people out here at 10 o'clock, we got out here at 11. So, I mean.
So tell me about what was that like as you're crossing the bridge, heading onto the island and heading towards your business? What was it like?
Mostly 4-letter words. It's a weird feeling because everybody going out there has an island tag, we call them. It's an emergency tag. They won't let you on the island without it. And just having that tag on your dash, stuff's pretty bad.
It's pretty serious. So what'd you guys see at your storefront when you got there?
We saw water damage, man. 4 feet. We got 4 feet, 3.5 feet in our store. Sludge on the ground. Just a line of destruction around the whole room. You can kind of see some of it. If you look, this is our little store right here. So we didn't actually do half as bad as most people, and we've got it pretty cleaned up right now. So
what were some of the, obviously I'm sure you've got a lot of good relationships with some of the other business owners and even residents there. What's some of the mess that they've had to clean up, or are they still working on it at this point?
yeah, let's go for a walk. First day we came up here and we came to our store, we took one look and we were like, well, our store's not that bad. Let's go check out Cortez, because we knew the fishing village got it real bad. And that's where we store all our coconuts, is down there at AP Bell Fish. And, they're a little lower lying than we are up here on the island. We just went down there and kind of handed out tacos for a couple of days and tried to keep those spirits kind of high down there. And then came back up here and got to work. We got to wait for insurance people to look at stuff, and got to do a lot of waiting in these situations sometimes. The lumber yards there, right there.
Yep.
They've been taking care of people, helping them out, putting boards up. Shout out to Island Lumber.
It sounds like you're all kind of helping each other out quite a bit. It's probably not the first rodeo some of you have been through either, I can imagine.
Absolutely not, man. But it's the worst one, so it's been weird. It's been a lot of resilience going on. This is Tony's True Value. He had like 5-foot waves right here, just 6-foot waves crashing into his store. They took out his window. All of our first floors are pretty much empty. So, things are pretty bad right now. You see some garbage stacked up on the street. A lot of stuff got cleaned up today, though.
What's the expected turnaround, Robert, for businesses to kind of be back in business and back going again?
Well,
what's that time period?
The government just told us 45 days, so until anybody can rent spots out here and come stay, but the businesses can be back up and running as soon as possible.
Well, do me a favor. I mean, it's certainly great to hear that in the face of that kind of disaster, that people are coming together and people just can have a great attitude and do that. Tell me a little bit about I Am Coconuts, what your business is and what you guys do for people.
Ami Coconuts, yeah. So the Ami comes from Anna Maria Island. We sell coconuts. We make coconut drinks with the water that God puts in the coconuts, and we deliver them to people. So that store that you saw was our first retail store, and it was set to open on Friday, and the storm hit Thursday.
Oh,
and we put a lot of work into that place.
Well, again, hopefully via this telethon, we're getting the word out, Robert, about kind of what's going on and what people in the path of Helene have been dealing with, and certainly help to drive some donations to the American Red Cross to kind of help with some of these relief efforts and needs that people have. So appreciate that. And we'll look at all that.
Man, no problem. This is all the sand from the beach that came up here that we had to dig out.
Thanks to Phil Johnson from Stormfront Freaks for that interview, because we know so many states have been impacted by Helene and more tropical threats still in the season ahead. As we begin to wind down here on our WeatherPod's Disaster Relief Telethon, you can still donate. We've just crossed the $11,000 mark. Thank you so much to everybody who has been donating tonight or was previously taken part in one of our fundraisers here. This has just been amazing. In the past hour alone, we've raised over $1,000, and I know we had about $2,000 that came in even ahead of tonight's telethon. This is combined with efforts that so many of you WeatherPod fans helped us build up this money over the course of the last few months with a big push for our fall drive just at the end of last year. So, Dino, I think we have some new names.
Yeah, we do. We have Jim and Elaine. They gave Jessica Gallagher. And then, of course, we've had Vera Hannaford, Dark Girl. Of course, I love Casey Johnson, young kid who gave his allowance money. Jill Johnson, and I love Inspector Sassy. I like that name. So thank you, everyone. Thank you.
So many people joining in the conversation with us tonight on YouTube and on Facebook, and we appreciate you guys joining in and being part of not only this virtual audience, but this virtual community. We could not do this without you. We appreciate you showing up tonight to support what we are doing to help the American Red Cross, help the people impacted by Helene. We still have a few more minutes. If you want to donate live with us and get a shout out, QR code is there on the screen, or in the chat is the link to donate. And if you're listening to this later, we would still welcome your donation. If you're listening to an audio podcast replay, there's a link to donate as well too. And you know, there's other ways to help out. We know not everyone can afford donating, whether that is donating physical goods or donating of your time. There are other ways that you can help contribute. And our friends at Chaser Chat talk to just
Hey there,
one of those
folks.
people.
I've got Sean Hendricks on the line right now. He is part of the Mr. Beast crew, and he is all.
Okay, I think I did it, guys. It's about time I had a misclick. I think I rolled the wrong video that time.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to look for it here, but they talked to a volunteer who was on the ground with his fiance bringing in supplies, just like water bottles and food to help the folks of Western North Carolina. So it looks like I don't have that video available to us right now, but you can find it in the Chaser Chat audio podcast feed if you want to hear more about what they were up to. His name was Josh Griffin. He's been donating via GoFundMe. He's been one of those many people boots on the ground. And Dina, I think you mentioned this earlier too. If you're going to be a boot on the ground, we really hope that you coordinate with emergency services or some sort of official recovery operation, so that we don't have a lot of people acting individually in a very dangerous area.
Yeah, be careful, because they have said people have died just by getting hit. They were pedestrians. They got out to look, got out to take pictures, and maybe some were just there trying to help. But sometimes, as much as you want to help, you got to be real careful, because you might be getting in the way. So definitely just be cognizant of where you're going.
Yeah, absolutely. There will be many more ways to help out in the weeks and months ahead, especially as other tropical threats present themselves and the need for assistance could grow. That is the time of year that we are unfortunately in. And so organizations like the American Red Cross, like other organizations, are out there to help. As a reminder, if you have been impacted by Helene, there is assistance available from FEMA to purchase essential items, secure temporary housing, or repair your home. There are 3 ways to apply for FEMA assistance in the affected areas. That's disasterassistance.gov, 1-800-621-3362, or you can use the FEMA app. In North Carolina, you'd have to be in one of these counties on your screen. Mecklenburg County has recently been added. South Carolina, the list is here too. This is just a little bit of a video clip from the Carolina Weather Group show. So we had those 2 states selected, as well as a number in North Carolina that you can dial. It's 211, or out of state, it's 1-888-892-1162 to reach the United Way of North Carolina. They are assisting with reuniting people who have been separated by this storm. And we know so many other states have been impacted as well, too. I want to allow our friends here from other weather pods to give some last words. But first, I just want to give my thanks and praise to everyone you've seen here on the screen tonight. The Carolina Weather Group, this has been a disaster playing out in our own backyard. And in the immediate aftermath of the storm, I sent an email out to our collaborative and said, we need your assistance. We want to do a telethon. Will you help us out? And all of you guys replied within minutes to say, yes, we are there. What can we do? And I jokingly said, I don't know yet, but my God, you responded so quickly. Thank you.
We're happy to help.
We appreciate it. You know, this is the second telethon we have done together. We did one last fall for the American Red Cross in general. There was no disaster at the time, and we have found ourselves, unfortunately, so many folks on the receiving end of the money that is being raised tonight. So we hope that we could live in a world where no one ever needed funds like this, but we're so grateful that all of these shows and all of their fan bases have come together in one joint community tonight. I really appreciate that. I don't know if you guys have any closing thoughts, but I'll stop talking for a moment in case you do.
And then listen, some people are going to watch this or listen later, not watch it live. That's the way it works on our show. Most people watch and listen later. And this is a chance for you to really make a tangible difference in somebody's life. One day, guess what? You're going to blink and you're going to be some old creeper guy like me. I mean, life goes by fast. And what are people going to remember you for? All that really matters is how you treat other people, how you help other people. And I don't want anybody to have any regrets where you think, man, I wish I would have helped these people. So just take the time and whatever, $5, $10, whatever you can do. Some of you can do $1,000, and it will make a tangible difference. And that will be honored. You do the right thing, and that will always be honored. Bill Murray, don't you agree?
Yeah, James, we think nothing about doing a $25 super chat on a YouTube channel that we love, or, something like that. Here's, a chance to really give for a cause. We as meteorologists spend our time, trying to prepare people for these type of events, and our hearts are broken when the worst comes true like this. And here's a chance to give back just a little bit. So please, in this way or in any other way, please make sure that you find a way to help, because as James said, this is what we want to be remembered for.
I'll say 100%, Bill. I do have two more shout outs to Anonymous for $50, Tanya Griffin, Mama G, sending money. Thank you. I mean, just think about, there's somebody out there who's going to benefit from that, and that's got to make you feel good. And I hope that even our donations just help somebody who needs it.
Yeah, absolutely. What an amazing philanthropy our audience has come forward with. We are treasured each week. We are delighted each week when you guys come forward to trust us with weather information or to sit and talk science. On all of these shows, we appreciate that community. We wouldn't have these shows without the audience, and to see the audience step up to assist is really, really heartwarming. And I hope it never comes to this, but I just want you guys on Stormfront Freaks, Chaser Chat, and Weather Brains to know if you ever need us here at the Carolina Weather Group, we are here for you as well too. Scotty Powell, I'm going to give you last thoughts. This is your hometown that's been impacted in the foothills of North Carolina, some of the hardest hit areas from Helene. What are your closing thoughts here tonight?
Well, I know places like Asheville and Lake Lure and Chimney Rock have been mentioned tonight. But places like Spruce Pine, Burnsville, Swannanoa, Waynesville have not. These places are still just now getting help into those locations. These are the small mountain towns that don't really get the national attention like an Asheville does or like a Boone does. So there's still people out there who are missing, in contact with emergency management and a lot of the foothill and mountain communities. There's still a lot of people missing, and still people following reports. I've still not been able to contact this person or that person. So this is going to be an ongoing emergency situation for the next several weeks. And so just keep everyone in your thoughts and prayers. They definitely need it. This is Appalachia. It's a strong-willed community that I know that will build back and probably build back better. But right now they need our help, and we appreciate all those who have donated tonight and the previous days. So just keep everyone in your thoughts and prayers. And I will say this, this is their tourism season right now, leaf season starting in late September through October. This year, I don't think they can accommodate that right now. There's just too much going on. I know Appalachian State up in Boone, they're going to have to move their college football games likely to Wake Forest and Winston-Salem. Ashe County schools, Watauga, Buncombe counties, their schools are closed indefinitely. UNC Asheville not going back until November. Western Carolina University, same thing. So the mountain communities are really hurting right now, and they need time to recover. So I hate to say it because I know a lot of people love to travel to Blue Ridge Parkway to see the leaves, but this year is probably not the year. And but give them another year and come back and visit them with your tourism dollars next year, because I know they will appreciate it. And again, the devastation that I saw firsthand Wednesday, James and Bill can attest to what severe tornadoes look like. And when you see a wall of flash flooding just wipe out rows of homes, that there's nothing left but a concrete slab from where a home used to stand, it's pretty significant damage. And those people's lives have been impacted for the rest of their lives. So just keep on your thoughts and prayers. And like we've all been talking about, this is not just a day or a 2-week thing. This is going to be several months into next year. So continue helping however you can.
Well said, Scotty. We appreciate those words. Appreciate everyone donating here tonight and in the days to weeks ahead. On behalf of the Carolina Weather Group, Chaser Chat, Stormfront Freaks, and Weather Brains, I'm James Brierton here in Charlotte, North Carolina. We will talk to you again real soon. Be well.